In 3 days, I will die. And when my heart stops, you must bring your mother to my body no matter how close she is to death. Because the moment I take my final breath, she will live again. I felt the world drop out from under me. My skin went cold. I couldn't believe what I had just heard from my own best friend, my 15-year-old best friend. It was impossible, insane, and yet, he wasn't joking. Hello, my name is John Husker. I'm 28 years old, and what I'm about to tell you will shake everything you think you know about death. 13 years ago, my best friend looked straight into my eyes and said, "John, I'm going to die on October 12th, 2006. But that same day, your mother will live." I laughed. I honestly thought he was messing with me. Carlo always spoke in ways that felt too deep, too strange things no 15-year-old should even understand. But brother, sister, when October 12th arrived, when I stood there staring at my best friend's body inside that white coffin, when my mother walked into my room sobbing with the results of her latest scan in her hands, everything inside me shifted. That day I didn't just lose my best friend. That was the day I realized Carlo Acutis was anything but ordinary. And what I'm about to reveal, something no one else knows, something I kept hidden for 13 years because I was terrified people would call me insane. This is the part that will make you question everything you believe about miracles, about death, about eternity. Because Carlo didn't just predict his death, he showed me things no human being should be able to see. And if you're watching this video right now, it isn't random. Carlo told me that someone like you would find it. He said someone who needed this message would come across it at the exact moment they were meant to. Are you ready to hear the truth? Are you ready to learn the secret Carlo Acutis entrusted to me 2 weeks before he died? I'm warning you after this. Nothing in your life will feel the same. Mine didn't. It was September 2006. Summer in Italy was fading, and the trees near our school in Milan were turning that golden shade that whispers autumn is coming. I was 15, so was Carlo. We had been inseparable since we were 7, ever since his family moved into the apartment next to mine on Via Alessandro Volta. We shared everything: video games, homework, stupid jokes, the kind of teenage dreams that made the world feel endless and wide open. But that September, something about Carlo felt different. His eyes, usually full of that bright, contagious joy everyone loved, now carried a depth I couldn't explain. It was as if he was seeing things none of us could, as if he understood something we didn't. I remember during breaks, while everyone else played soccer or talked about girls, Carlo would sit on the benches in the courtyard, staring up at the sky with an expression I still can't fully describe. It wasn't sadness. It was something deeper, like he was silently speaking with someone we couldn't see. I'd ask him, "Carlo, are you okay? You seem different." And he'd smile that soft smile of his and say, "I'm more than okay, John. I'm exactly where God wants me to be." At the time, I had no idea what he meant. Now I do. Now I understand every look, every word, every quiet moment from those final days. It was his farewell, and I was too blind to notice. On September 28th, 2006, exactly 14 days before he died, Carlo called me into his room after school. I remember every detail of that moment as if it happened yesterday. His computer was on, displaying his website about Eucharistic miracles. The evening light came through the window, stretching long shadows across walls covered with posters of saints and superheroes. Yes, Carlo loved saints just as much as he loved Spider-Man. That was who he was. His desk was arranged with that perfect order only he could keep. His computer books neatly stacked on the left, his marked-up Bible at the center, and on the right, a photo from his first communion where he smiled with a purity that never faded. The room smelled like a mix of his mother's perfume drifting up from the kitchen and the distinct scent of old books that always filled his space. "John," he said as he closed the door gently behind us, "I need to tell you something, and you can't repeat it to anyone until the right time." I sat on his bed, assuming he was about to tell me something about a girl or maybe a family issue. Never, not even in my wildest thoughts, did I imagine what he was about to say. Carlo sat beside me, hands clasped together on his knees, breathing slowly as if searching for the right words. I noticed his fingers trembling, something I had never seen before. Carlo was always calm, always steady. But in that moment, I saw vulnerability in his eyes. I saw fear, Not fear of dying, but fear that I wouldn't believe him. Finally, with a quietness that froze my blood, he said, "I'm going to die in 2 weeks, October 12th, and I want you to understand something. Don't be afraid. Everything is within God's design. Every part of this has a purpose far bigger than what we can grasp right now." Brothers, sisters, I froze on the spot. It felt like the whole world stopped breathing. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, the faint hum of traffic outside, and the heavy sound of my own breath, slow, uneven, struggling to keep up. At first, I wanted to believe he was joking, but the look on his face, that calm, that impossible peace someone shouldn't have while speaking about their own death. Something deep inside me knew he was telling the truth. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The room felt like it was spinning around me. "Carlo, what are you talking about? Are you sick? Did you go to a doctor?" My voice didn't even sound like mine. It came out distant, foreign. He smiled, that gentle smile he always gave me whenever he understood something I hadn't caught up to yet. "Yes, John, I have leukemia. They diagnosed me 3 days ago." Then he shook his head slowly. "But that's not what this is about. It's not about the illness. It's about what's going to happen. It's about your mom. And this is the part that breaks me every single time I replay it." Carlo leaned closer, placed his right hand on my left shoulder, and with those brown eyes that always seemed to look past my skin, past my bones, straight into the core of who I was, he told me something that would change my entire life. "On the day I die, your mother will be healed. The cancer in her lungs will disappear." God showed me during prayer, John. He showed me as clearly as I'm looking at you right now. My death isn't the end, it's the beginning of something greater. It's part of a plan neither of us fully understands yet. And here's the thing, I didn't even know my mother had cancer. She had never told me. She hid her diagnosis so I wouldn't worry during final exams. My parents were planning to tell me afterward, but Carlo already knew. He knew something no one had ever mentioned to him. It felt like the ground beneath me cracked open. "How? How do you know that about my mom?" I managed to whisper, my voice breaking apart. My throat felt tight, every word scraping on the way out. My eyes began to fill, but I forced the tears back. I didn't want to cry in front of him. I didn't want him to see me fall apart. But of course, Carlo already knew. He always sensed what I felt before I even admitted it to myself. "Jesus told me," he answered, in a tone so natural it should have sounded insane, a tone that would have come off as delusional from anyone else but from him. It sounded like the clearest truth in the universe. He told me during Eucharistic adoration last Tuesday. I was alone in the church of San Carlo around 5 in the afternoon. The light was coming through the stained glass, and John, I saw Jesus as clearly as I see you. It wasn't some vague feeling or a blurry vision. It was real, solid. He spoke to me. He showed me things. He showed me my time here is short, but that what I'm meant to do is only beginning. And he showed me your mom. I saw her in a hospital bed. I saw her crying. I saw her praying. And then, I saw her smiling, completely healed, hugging you while you cried with joy. I couldn't process any of it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him and tell him to stop saying crazy things, to run to a hospital, to talk to his parents. But something inside me, some quiet, buried place beyond logic, knew he was telling the truth. "Carlo, this is impossible," I stammered. "You can't know when you're going to die. Even doctors can't predict something like that. And my mom is fine. I saw her this morning making breakfast. She was laughing, talking to my aunt. She can't have cancer. There has to be a mistake." But even as I said that, images began surfacing in my mind, my mother coughing at night, looking thinner than usual, the constant worry on my father's face that I had noticed but brushed off, the frequent visits from my aunt, the hushed conversations that would stop the second I walked into the room. Suddenly everything clicked into place like a grim, inevitable puzzle. Carlo nodded slowly. I needed to leave that room. I needed to run home and ask my mother the truth. But Carlo grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "John, wait. There's more, John. You need to hear everything." His voice shifted, no longer sounding like a 15-year-old kid. It was something older, something filled with a depth I still can't explain. "When I die, and they hold my wake at Santa Maria, I want you to bring your mother. I want her to touch my coffin. I want her to pray. That's when it will happen. That exact moment is when God will heal her. I saw it, John. I saw her face change. I saw her crying with joy. I saw the miracle. My legs gave out and I collapsed back into the chair because I literally couldn't stand anymore. Tears finally spilled down my face. I couldn't stop them. It was all too much to process, too much pain, too much impossibility. Why are you telling me this? Why now? My voice came out as a broken whisper. Carlo hugged me, then a long, tight embrace that felt desperate, final, a farewell. Because you need to be ready. Because when it happens, when I'm gone and your mother is healed, you're the one who must tell the world what took place. You have to be the witness of God's power. That's your purpose, John. That's why God showed it to me first, so I could prepare you. The days that followed were the strangest of my entire life. Every morning I woke up hoping it had all been some twisted nightmare. But then I'd see Carlo at school, thinner, weaker, fading more each day, and I knew it was happening. That very night after Carlo told me everything, I went home and confronted my parents. My father was sitting at the kitchen table, medical papers spread everywhere. My mother was on the couch, her eyes swollen from crying. When I asked them directly if it was true, if she really had cancer, the silence that followed was suffocating. My father closed his eyes, dropped his head into his hands. My mother broke down again. "How did you know, John?" My father finally asked. I couldn't tell them Carlo had said it. I couldn't explain that my best friend had seen it in a vision of Jesus. So I lied. I told them I'd overheard something by accident. That night they told me everything. The diagnosis, the prognosis, the treatments that weren't helping, the limited options, the likely timeline. I cried until there was nothing left inside me. Over the next few days, I watched Carlo with a mix of awe and dread. He kept coming to school even though it was obvious how sick he was. His skin had become pale, almost see-through, and dark circles framed his eyes. But his spirit, his faith, his strange joy never dimmed. He spoke to everyone with kindness. He helped teachers. He smiled at classmates who weren't even his friends. And every time he looked at me, his eyes seemed to say, "Trust. It's okay. This is all part of the plan." On October 10th, 2 days before the date he had foretold, he stopped coming to school. His mother called to say Carlo had been hospitalized. The leukemia had advanced rapidly. The doctors were stunned by the speed. I went to see him that afternoon. The room smelled of disinfectant and flowers. Carlo lay in the bed, surrounded by tubes and machines. But when he saw me, he smiled like we were just back in his room playing video games. "Hey, John, I knew you'd come." His voice was weak, but steady. I sat beside him and held his hand. It was cold, far too cold. Is everything you told me still going to happen?" I whispered, almost afraid to hear the answer. Carlo nodded slowly. "The day after tomorrow, early in the morning around 6:30 a.m., John. Don't be afraid. Where I'm going, it's beautiful. Jesus showed it to me. More beautiful than any words can describe. There's light, not sunlight, but a light that comes from everywhere and nowhere at once. It feels like pure love. And I'm going to be okay, more than okay. But you, brother, you need to be strong. You have to take care of your mom, and you have to keep the promise I'm about to ask from you." He tried to sit up a little. One of the tubes shifted, and a nurse rushed in to fix it. When she left, Carlo continued, "When your mother is healed, when the miracle happens, I want you to share this story. Not right away. Wait. Wait until you turn 28. Wait until you fully understand what happened. And then, John, then tell the world that miracles exist, that God listens, that death isn't the end. Will you promise me?" I nodded, unable to get a single word out. Tears streamed down my face. "I promise you, Carlo. I promise." October 12th, 2006 arrived with a dull gray sky over Milan. It was a Thursday. I remember I didn't go to school. I couldn't. I stayed in my room, staring at the clock, waiting. At 6:15, exactly 45 minutes after Carlo passed away, I heard hurried footsteps rushing down the hallway of my house. My mother burst into my room holding a sheet of paper. Her face looked completely different, not the face of a sick, frightened woman anymore, but the face of someone who had just witnessed the impossible. John, you're not going to believe this," she cried, laughing and sobbing at the same time. "The results, the emergency scan they did yesterday, the tumor, John. The tumor is gone, completely gone. The doctors had no explanation. They said it shouldn't be medically possible. They said it was a miracle. She dropped to her knees beside my bed, clinging to me, still crying. And I, brother, sister, I finally broke. I cried for Carlo. I cried for my mother. I cried for the miracle unfolding right in front of me. In that moment, holding my mother who had been healed at the exact instant Carlo said she would be, I knew with absolute certainty that my life had changed forever. I was no longer the same John Husker who played video games and worried about school exams. I had become someone who had witnessed God's power firsthand, someone who had seen the veil between heaven and earth turn thin and transparent, someone chosen to carry a sacred secret until the precise moment it was meant to be revealed. Carlo Acutis didn't just predict his own death and my mother's healing. He gave me purpose. He gave me a mission. And for 13 years, I carried this story inside me like a burning flame, waiting for the moment he told me would come. That moment is now. And what you're about to hear in the second part of this testimony will show you that this miracle was only the beginning, because after Carlo's funeral, even more extraordinary things began to happen. Things that proved my friend wasn't just a prophet, he was a bridge between two worlds. And that bridge is still open. Brothers, if you're watching this second part, it's because you need to hear what happened next. Because my mother's healing was only the beginning. What unfolded in the days, weeks, and years after Carlo Acutis died showed me that my friend didn't simply foresee his death. He left behind a supernatural legacy that continues to manifest even now. Carlo's funeral took place on October 15th, 2006, 3 days after he died. The Church of Santa Maria in Milan was packed more than 500 people. Classmates, teachers, families from the neighborhood, people Carlo had helped through his work documenting Eucharistic miracles. But what none of them expected was the atmosphere. It didn't feel like an ordinary funeral. There was no heaviness, no darkness that usually surrounds death. There was something else in the air, a peace, a presence, something I still struggle to describe, but everyone there felt it. My mother, healed 3 days earlier, stood beside me. The doctors had run 3 more scans after the first one. All of them showed the same thing: no cancer anywhere. In her medical file, the doctors wrote the term they were afraid to use, unexplained spontaneous remission. But I knew the truth. It wasn't spontaneous. It was the miracle Carlo had predicted with pinpoint accuracy. During the funeral, Father Giuseppe, Carlo's confessor, spoke about his life. He shared things I had never known. How Carlo woke up every day at 5 in the morning to attend Mass before school, how he fasted on Fridays for the souls of sinners, how he spent hours in Eucharistic adoration, how he had a deep devotion to the Virgin Mary. But the part that shook me was when Father Giuseppe said something that froze my blood. 3 weeks before he died, Carlo told me that God had revealed to him that he would be leaving soon. He told me he wasn't afraid. He said his death would have a purpose. That through his passing, many would come to know the love of Jesus. In that moment, every word Carlo had told me came flooding back, every prophecy, every detail. And I realized I wasn't the only one he had prepared. He had been preparing others too. After the Mass, as people approached the coffin to say goodbye, my mother took my hand. "John, I need to go closer. I need to thank Carlo for my life." We walked together toward the front of the church. Carlo's coffin was white, simple, beautiful. There were flowers everywhere, especially white roses, his absolute favorite. And the moment my mother placed her hand on the coffin, something extraordinary happened. It wasn't something only I saw. Dozens of people witnessed it. The temperature inside the church shifted. Suddenly it felt warmer, but not like heavy heat, more like being wrapped inside an embrace. And then, brother, sister, something occurred that still keeps me awake at night when I think about it. A fragrance began to rise from the coffin. It wasn't the smell of the flowers. It was something entirely different. Sweet, but not overwhelming. Like a blend of roses and vanilla, but purer, almost otherworldly. It was the very scent the saints describe, one that surrounds holy souls. People around us started whispering, "Do you smell that? Where is it coming from? It feels like heaven opened up." My mother fell to her knees beside the coffin, crying but not with sorrow. These were tears of deep gratitude, of knowing something supernatural was unfolding right before her. "Thank you, Carlo," she whispered over and over. "Thank you for my life. Thank you for the miracle. But what happened next was even more astonishing. A woman standing behind us in the line, an elderly lady I had never seen before, suddenly shouted. It wasn't fear. It was raw amazement. I can see. I can see. She pulled off her thick glasses and began sobbing. I've had cataracts for 30 years. The doctors said surgery wouldn't help anymore. But now I can see. I can see clearly. People rushed to her side. Her husband held her, stunned. Father Giuseppe quickly approached. Signora Martina, what are you saying? She cried. Father, when I touched the coffin and smelled that scent, I felt something in my eyes as if someone lifted a veil. And now, Father, now I can see everything. I can see the details of the flowers. I can see the candles. I can see my husband's face without glasses for the first time in decades. Brother, sister, that day it wasn't only my mother. 3 healings were recorded at Carlo's funeral. Signora Martina's cataracts vanished. A young man named Federico, who suffered from a severe herniated disc, suddenly moved without pain. And a little girl named Sophia, born with a skin condition, had every mark disappear while her mother held her near the coffin. The days following the funeral were chaotic. News of the healings spread throughout Milan. Local media began investigating. My mother's doctors gave interviews admitting they had no medical explanation. Signora Martina went to an ophthalmologist who confirmed her cataracts had disappeared. Federico had MRIs showing his herniated disc was healed. Sophia's parents had medical photos proving the transformation of her skin. But what no one else knew yet was that Carlo had told me all of this beforehand, that he knew his death would unleash these miracles. I kept his secret, just as he asked, waiting for the right moment. 1 week after the funeral, a package arrived at my door. It was from Carlo's mother, Antonia. Inside was a letter, and something wrapped in white tissue paper. The letter said, "This was in an envelope with your name on it. I believe he wanted you to have it." With trembling hands, I unwrapped the paper. It was a rosary, the one Carlo always carried in his pocket. The beads were worn from constant use. Attached to it was another letter. This one was from Carlo, handwritten, dated October 10th, 2006, 2 days before he died. Brother, sister, when I read that letter, I cried harder than I ever had in my life. I'll read parts of it to you now, because Carlo told me that when the moment came, I should share his words. Dear John, if you're reading this, it means I'm already gone. It means God's plan unfolded exactly the way he showed me. I hope your mom is well. I know she is. I saw her in my vision, healthy, joyful, holding you tight. But there's something else you need to know. The next years are going to be hard for you. You're going to have doubts. You'll wonder why I had to die so young. You'll question why God allows suffering. But John, my brother, suffering isn't the end. It's part of the path. Through my suffering, your mother was healed. Through my death, others will find life. He wrote that Jesus showed him something else, that his body would not decay the way ordinary bodies do. He showed me I will be beatified. He admitted it sounded insane, that I might think he was delirious from the illness, but I wasn't, he wrote. I was clearer than ever. And he added, when that day comes, when they beatify me, I want you to remember this letter. I want you to remember I told you years before it happened. I had to stop reading because tears blurred the ink. Beatification. Carlo had predicted his own beatification. Back in 2006, it felt impossible. But you, those watching this now, you know what happened next. The years passed. I grew up. I went to university. I studied medicine because after witnessing my mother's healing, I wanted to understand the human body. I wanted to stand where science and faith meet. Through all those years, I kept Carlo's secret. I kept his letter. I carried his rosary everywhere I went, and I watched. I watched as Carlo's story spread far beyond Milan, how his testimony, his love for the Eucharist, his work documenting Eucharistic miracles inspired young people across Italy, then across Europe, then across the world. In 2013, 7 years after his death, the Archdiocese of Milan officially opened Carlo Acutis' cause for beatification. When I heard the news, I pulled out Carlo's letter and read it again. He had known. He had predicted it just like he predicted his death, just like he predicted my mother's healing. In 2018, 12 years after he died, they exhumed Carlo's body for the beatification process. I wasn't there, But Father Giuseppe called me that night. His voice was shaking. "John, you need to know this. Carlo's body is intact, incorrupt. The doctors can't explain it. It's been 12 years and his body is almost perfectly preserved. John, it's another miracle." I fell to my knees in my apartment. Carlo had known. He had known everything. On October 10th, 2020, exactly 14 years after his death, Carlo Acutis was beatified by the Catholic Church. I was 29 years old. I had reached the 28 years Carlo asked me to wait. I was there in Assisi, Italy, where the ceremony was held. Thousands of people from all over the world gathered, especially young people, those whose lives had been touched by a teenager who loved Jesus without shame, who used technology to evangelize, who lived with joy even though he knew he would die young. During the ceremony, they displayed Carlo's body. Brother, sister, it was one of the most overwhelming moments of my entire life. There he was, my best friend, the boy I played video games with, studied with, laughed and cried with. His face looked peaceful, and his hands still held a rosary. 14 years later, he looked like he was simply asleep. The cardinal leading the Mass spoke about Carlo's extraordinary life, about his heroic virtues, about the miracles attributed to his intercession because my mother wasn't the only one. Over those 14 years, hundreds of people reported healings after praying to Carlo. Children with brain tumors, adults with terminal illnesses, people freed from addictions, marriages restored, miraculous conversions. The world was discovering what I had known since I was 15. Carlo Acutis was a saint, but there was something else, something only I knew, something Carlo had asked me to share only after his beatification. At the end of the letter, there was a final paragraph I had never shown anyone. "I will be with you. You won't see me, but I'll be there. In difficult moments, when you doubt, when fear hits you, I will send signs. Look for white roses, look for the number 12, look for the scent of vanilla. Those will be my signs for you." Brother, sister, across these 13 years, I've seen those signs more times than I can count. The day I took my final medical exam, the hardest test of my life, I found a white rose on my desk. No one knew how it got there. The office had been locked. The day I met my wife, Lucia, it was October 12th, the anniversary of Carlo's death. And when I proposed to her, I did it in a church that, without me knowing, had 12 white roses on the altar. When my first child was born on December 12th at exactly 12 inches the afternoon, the doctor mentioned he had never seen such an easy delivery, and that the room carried a strange scent, something like vanilla. Carlo was keeping his promise. He was there, interceding, guiding, protecting. After his beatification, I felt the moment had finally come to share my testimony openly. I started slowly, first with my family, then close friends, then with my local church. The reactions were mixed. Some believed me immediately, others were doubtful. A few accused me of making everything up just to get attention, but I had evidence. I had Carlo's handwritten letter, dated 2 days before his death, predicting his beatification. I had my mother's medical files showing her cancer had vanished without explanation. I had the testimonies of Signora Martina, of Federico, of little Sophia. I had years of documented signs and miracles. But more than anything, brother, sister, I had certainty in my heart. The certainty of someone who has seen heaven brush against earth. The certainty of someone who has witnessed the supernatural power of God firsthand. In 2022, 16 years after Carlo's death, I decided to create this video testimony. I prayed for months about when and how to share it, and I felt clearly that the time had come that people around the world, especially in Latin America, needed to hear this story, needed to know that miracles exist, that faith isn't just psychological comfort but a doorway into the supernatural. My mother, now 63 and completely healthy, told me when I shared my decision, "John, tell everything. Don't be afraid. Tell them how Carlo saved my life. Tell them how that 15-year-old boy was a prophet. Tell them how God uses the young to do extraordinary things." And that's exactly what I'm doing today. Brothers, I want you to understand something essential. Carlo Acutis wasn't holy because he was born special. He was special because he chose holiness. He was an ordinary kid. He loved video games. He adored superhero movies. He had a PlayStation in his room. But he made a choice. He chose to make Jesus the center of his life. He chose to go to Mass every day, no matter how he felt. He chose to fast for sinners. He chose to use his talent with computers to evangelize. And that choice, that total surrender, opened the gates of heaven over his life. God entrusted him with secrets. God showed him the future. God used him as an instrument of healing and transformation. And the same can happen to you. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need extraordinary talents. You just need surrender. You just need to say yes. Yes to God. Yes to His will. Yes to His plan, even when you don't fully understand it. Carlo taught me that. He taught me that holiness isn't reserved for a chosen few. It's for anyone willing to pay the price. I want to share something else that Carlo told me during our last conversation at the hospital, something I've never revealed until now. He said, "John, in the future there will be great confusion in the world. People will doubt God, doubt the church, doubt miracles. That's why my story must be told to remind them that God has not abandoned humanity, that He is still at work, that He still loves, that He continues doing the impossible. Brothers, we are living exactly in the time Carlo warned me about, a time of confusion, division, skepticism, and yet also a time of opportunity. A time when testimonies like this can ignite flames of faith in hearts that have grown cold. A time when the story of a 15-year-old boy can inspire millions to seek God with all they are. My life changed forever the day Carlo revealed his secret to me. But it wasn't just because my mother was healed. It was because I understood we live in a universe where the supernatural is real, where God intervenes, where prayer has power, where faith moves mountains. I studied medicine and became a doctor not to rely solely on science, but to stand as a bridge between science and faith. To be able to say with authority, I have seen things medicine cannot explain. I have seen God heal what doctors declared incurable. Today I work in a hospital in Milan, the very same hospital where my mother was declared miraculously healed. And every time I face a difficult case, a terminal patient, a family clinging to their last hope, I tell them about Carlo. I share the miracle. I offer to pray with them. Some say yes, others say no. But those who do say yes, brother, sister, those who do have witnessed extraordinary things. I've seen tumors vanish. I've seen fatal diagnoses overturned. I've seen the hand of God move in response to faith. Does everyone receive healing? No. And that's something I've had to learn. Not everyone receives a physical miracle. Some receive the miracle of peace in the middle of suffering. Some receive the miracle of faith in their darkest moment. Some receive the miracle of reconciliation before they pass. God is sovereign. He chooses how He acts. But one thing is certain: He responds. He hears. He moves. My mother was healed because that was God's plan. Because her healing would testify to Carlo's mission. Because her life still had a purpose that wasn't fulfilled yet. She has spent the last 16 years sharing her story. She's traveled throughout Italy. She's spoken in churches, conferences, radio shows. She has inspired thousands. That was the plan. Carlo saw it. Carlo knew it. Carlo foretold it. And it happened exactly as he said. Now, brother, sister, let me ask you something directly. Why do you think this testimony reached you today? Do you believe it's random? I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in divine appointments. I believe God made sure this video came into your life at this exact moment because He wants to tell you something. Maybe you're facing an illness and you need to know that God still heals. Maybe you lost someone you love and you need to know death is not the end. Maybe your faith has been shaken and you need to be reminded that God is real, that miracles still happen, that believing is worth it. Whatever your situation is, this testimony is for you. Carlo told me that when I finally shared his story, specific people would find it. People God is calling. People meant to do great things in His kingdom. Are you one of them? If something stirred inside your heart while you listened, if you felt something deeper than emotion, if a spark of hope ignited inside your spirit, then yes, brother, sister, this message is meant for you. And Carlo is interceding for you right now. From heaven, he is praying that your life will be transformed, that you will experience God's power in the way you need to experience it. Before I finish, I want to pray for you. I want to do what Carlo used to do for me. I want to stand in the gap for you the same way he did for my family. Heavenly Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, and through the intercession of blessed Carlo Acutis, I lift up every person watching this testimony. Lord, You know exactly who they are. You know their names, their battles, their pain, their needs. Some are sick and need healing. Touch them right now. Some have lost their faith and need an encounter with. You reveal yourself to them personally. Some are facing impossible situations and need a miracle. God of the impossible, intervene. Just as you used Carlo's death to heal my mother, use this testimony today to transform lives. May every person who listened with an open heart feel your presence in a tangible way. Let them sense your love. Let them know your power. And let them never doubt again that you are real, that you are alive, that you still work miracles in this world. In Jesus' name, Amen. Brother, sister, thank you for staying with me until the end. Thank you for hearing the secret I carried for 13 years. Please share this testimony. Share it with someone who needs hope. Tell me in the comments what country you're watching from. Let me know if this testimony touched your heart, and if you know who Carlo Acutis is. If you've experienced any miracle through his intercession, share it. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs. And remember the words Carlo always repeated. We are all born originals, but many die as copies. Don't be a copy, brother. Be the original God created you to be. Live with purpose. Live with faith. Live the way Carlo lived. And get ready to witness miracles. God bless you abundantly. Blessed Carlo Acutis, pray for us.